You are welcome to today's lesson. My name is Ebenezer and I'll be the one to lead you through this particular lesson. Vocabulary is one part of the assessment that your examiners might or they would actually mark you on. Okay, and we talk about the vocabulary, mean your lexical resources. Okay, how you're able to use a wide range of words to talk about the same thing without repeatedly using the same words. So when we deal with the writing task, okay, the writing task has common graphs that you may report on. You might talk about a line graph, a pie chart, a bar graph, a table, a double chart, okay, a process diagram or a map. You might get questions on any of these, but one thing you should notice that these five, basically these four, which is the line graph, pie chart, bar chart, and table, are different from this last two, which is the process diagram and then the map. The reason is that these five charts, the reason I did not add the double chart is because it contains any of these first four. All right, so these five graphs, which is the line graph, the pie chart, the bar graph, table, or double chart, these contain numbers. So they are made up of numbers, right? You might get numbers and there might be an actual number, or it can be in percentage form. Okay, so they are all containing numbers aside the process diagram and the map. If you look at this line graph, you can see we have numbers here: 0.51, 1.52, thereabouts, right? So it's only the process diagram and the map that do not contain numbers, but aside that, all these four contain numbers. And because they contain either numbers in their numeric form or in percentages, it's very important that you understand how you'll be able to talk about them when you are dealing with the writing task 1. Okay, so if you want to describe them, because it's important, it's not something that you can do away with. It takes almost about 75% of whatever writing that you'll be going to, because you need to show what you are going to talk about and prove it with digits. Okay, you have to prove it on the map or on the diagram. You need to prove it on the diagram, sorry. You need to prove it on the diagram, and to prove it on the diagram you need to use numbers. So it's important that you be able to know how to the best vocabularies to use to help you in this work. So I'm going to take off the process diagram and map, and then we deal with this. And because I'm going to deal with numbers, there are 3 ways that I'm going to talk about the numbers, and there are 3 things that you need to note if you want to describe these numbers properly. So let's see. In regard to the number, there are 3 vocabularies that you have to study, or 3 forms of things that you need to study. 1, you need to know the vocabularies that are needed to describe a position. Okay, for instance, if you find this point, you can see this point, this one position, another position, another position. So if you want to describe this particular position, what is the best vocabulary? What are the things that you can use to describe these positions? Okay, so you need to know these vocabulary to help you describe a position. Again, you need to also have some vocabulary that you would need to compare between 2 or more numbers, because remember, in the writing task 1, it tells you to summarize the information by selecting. Okay, selecting and reporting the main features. So for instance, if you have been able to select one position and you want to talk about that particular point, you will need vocabularies in this first point. What about if you want to, remember I said that summarize information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons. So comparing between two numbers, they are very important. So you also have to know the words, you have to get the vocabulary that you need to compare between two numbers on the graph. And the third one is the vocabulary that is very needed, or that you will need to describe trend. Okay, in case there is trend, you need to know how to describe the trend. For instance, you can see the movement of this line. How would you be able to describe this line, right? The movement, or how the position is changing throughout time. So you will need these vocabularies to help you. But in this particular lesson, we are going to take only the first one, which will be vocabularies needed to describe a position. So by the end of this lesson, we will learn what a positional statement is. Okay, so when we talk about positional statement, what is it? And then we'll look at some of the words that you can use to show position. Okay, and then we'll look at some of them. We'll look at the examples of each one. So when we take one word, we also use them in example in sentences. And then I'll give you an exercise to at the end of the lesson for you to try your hands. Okay, so when we talk about positional statements, it's just a way you can describe a particular point on the graph. Okay, so it's just describing the statement that you use to describe particular point on the graph. So you see there is a point here, another point here. So how do I describe the points on the graph? You just have to make a statement to report on that particular point. So I can say that if I take this particular point, or even let me take this one, as you can see, we have 1 million visitors in 2010, right? 2010. So I can say that the total, say this total, this represent total. So the total number of visitors who came to the Caribbean island in 2010 were 1 million, right? So I use the word total to describe the position, the total number of, okay, to describe the position here. So that is what we call positional statement. But there are several words that you can use to show position, and that is what we are going to look at. So in this lesson, we are going to use these words: number, total, comprise, right, account for or accounted for, amount, and figure. So these are the words that you're going to use to show position on the graph. So I'm going to take the first one, which will be number. Okay, so you can state using the word number, and you can use them in different forms. It can be in the present tense, where you can state the word, you can still use the word number, or it can be in the past tense, where you can use the word numbered. Okay, so it can be numbered, right? Or it can be in a noun form. If you don't want it to be in a verb form, you can use it in a noun form, where you can use the word like a phrase like the number of, right? The number of. All right, so these words can be used to describe position on the graph. So let's look at an example. So we are using these words: number, numbered, and the number of. The first one is cars produced in Japan, number around 9 million units at present, right? Cars produced in Japan, number. So it shows the position of cars, the number of units that they produce presently. 2. Car production in Japan, numbered around 9 million units last year, showing the past tense. And now the noun form. The number of cars, okay? The number of cars produced in Japan last year stood at 9 million. So you can see that we are using the word number to show position. Our next word that we are going to use to describe position is total. So total, we can use the word total. This word can also be changed into different form. It's the same total, but we can be using it in different form. It can be changed in its past tense, okay? So you can use the past verb form, which is totaled, right? It can also be used in a noun phrase like in total, okay? So you can state in total. And this one too is a noun form, the total number or the total amount of. You can use it in noun form. So let's see some examples that we can use this word total, right? Number one, the number of cars produced in Japan totaled as past tense. So totaled around 9 million last year. The total number of cars produced in Japan last year stood at around 9 million, outnumbering the USA, which was 7 million. In total, so you can see here, total, the total number of, in total, 300,000 iPhones were manufactured in the last quarter of 2016. In total, 300,000 iPhones were manufactured in the last quarter of 2016. 4. The total number of electricity, the total amount of electricity produced in the first half of 2016 was around 2 million kilowatts. So amount for uncountable nouns, okay? So the total amount or the total amount of electricity produced in the first half of 2016 was around 2 million kilowatts. Right, so that's how you can use the word total. There are several ways you can use them, but these are some few ways that I've already taught you. Let's look at another word, which will be amount. So you can use the word amount to also show position on a graph. It can be used either in past form or in the present form, okay? And sometimes you can use it in its noun form, like the amount of. All right, and in that usage, it should be used with uncountable nouns. So you can't count the amount of electricity, like 1, 2, 3. Okay, so the amount of electricity produced in Canada from hydroelectric power has risen sharply since 2012. So we use the word amount of, okay, amount of, the amount of. But amount can also be used in its past form. It can use as a past tense or a present tense, depending on the word you use in attach. So something like this, you can say amounted to or amount to. All right, you should check the subject verb agreement to make sure that everything goes on accordingly. So let's read the second sentence. Car production in USA amounted to 250,000 vehicles in the first half of 2015. Amounted to, so it's like total, okay, totaled. The third one is the cost of repairs amount to, this is present form. The cost of repair amounted to, so you can use it either in its present form or in its past form. So this one shows present, the cost of repairs amount to, which is show total, and this one, the cost of repairs amounted to, showing in past tense. So that's how you can also use the word amount. Let's go to the next word that we want to use, figure. So figure will also be one of the words that we are going to use. And let's look at some of the examples. We can say that the figure for people entering university reached a peak by 2014. Right, so at 2014, the people entering university reached its highest form. 2. The population figures for India rose by 12% over the 2 decades. 3. The figure for unemployment dropped to 5% in 2015. So these are several words that you can use to show position. Now let's look at the last two and then we will be done. So the last two words that we will be using here will be comprise and account for. You can use them in different tenses depending on the word formation. So comprise, you can use it in past tense as comprised, and account, you can say accounted for, depending on so this is like in its past tense, okay, in its past form. So you should be able to know how to use them. All right, so let's look at these two examples just to finish up with this vocabulary part for position. So these are the two examples. Energy production in France comprised 6% of hydropower and 24% of nuclear power in 2010. So it was made up of, right, 6% of. So just to show describe a particular position or describe a particular position on the graph. If we take the second sentence, state in 2070 or 2070, hydropower and nuclear power accounted for 6% and 24% of energy production in France, respectively. Okay, so in 2070 alone, we had hydropower and nuclear power, which was actually in that particular energy production. So hydropower and nuclear power accounted for 6% and 24% of energy production in France, respectively. Using different words or having when you master different words to help you in the vocabulary will actually assist you very well to help to increase your score. So you need to know how to use them. That is the most important. Just learn properly how to use them, and I believe it will be very helpful for your lexical resources. So that will be all for today. In our next lesson, we learn other things on the vocabulary, and I believe it is going to help you. All right, I would give you a test on this one, an exercise on this one after this. So just look out for it. I'll give you a test for you to do on this vocabulary to describe a position. Thank you.